Welcome everyone. It's great to be at one more Humanity Plus Transvision Transhumanist event. There's been a lot of them, and one of the fascinating things is while the core vision presented by those of us who have been in this movement a really long time, the core vision doesn't change too much, but the technology gets better and better each time, and that definitely changes the way we speak about things. I mean, when I first began speaking about AGI to transhumanist audiences, I mean, there were people thinking AGI might never occur, it could be 500 or 1,000 years off or something, and now the world has changed. You have national leaders, CEOs of major corporations who are thinking about AGI as part of their national or their corporate strategy, and the pessimists about AGI timing on stage, like our friend Callum, are saying, well, it's 100 years off. They're not saying 500 or 1,000 years off anymore, right? So we're seeing a lot of interesting progress, and it's global, which is cool. I mean, I've been living in Hong Kong for the last 8 years. I've been spending time with the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, who has a degree in software engineering, and gave us a bunch of in-depth critiques on Sophia, the robot's operations. So, I mean, these ideas are spreading, and this is both amazing, and it is, as some of the talks we've just seen highlight, it's also informative as to what some of the risks and problems might be. I'd say 10 years ago, everyone asked me about the Terminator or the Matrix, like, isn't AI going to use us all as batteries or enslave us or something? And now, in the last few years, people just ask, isn't AI going to take all our jobs? So I figure they realize that AI will kill them eventually. They just don't want to be unemployed while waiting to be murdered. Well, that's not serious, but
Actually, it is.
well, maybe it is. Who knows? But I think part of the reason for this shift is, I mean, people can see right now major industries like, say, long-distance truck driving in the U.S. or something, or even taxi or Uber driving. People can see some things that are probably going to be taken over by AIs, and it's no longer seeming quite so obvious that there's going to be new, like, equally good or even any jobs for everyone. So I think, we live at a very interesting time when some of these technologies, I've been reading and thinking about since I was a little kid in the early 1970s, others even longer. These are, some things that would have seemed astounding 20, 30 years ago are actually real and in our lives right now, like self-driving cars in the streets and, face recognition cameras in the streets of Shenzhen or Hangzhou that automatically send you a ticket when you jaywalk, right? So some of these things are there right now, and there's enough of these things that used to seem science fictional that are real right now that people are starting to believe all the rest of our crazy transhumanist visions may really come about, hopefully within our lifetimes. If not, then maybe not that long thereafter. And this has shifted some thinking to, like, what are the implications in a real near-term sense, not just hypothetical Terminators marching down the streets, but, like, how do these advanced technologies integrate, with society as we have it right now, with the power structures as we see them in the world today. And I think for these sorts of issues, it does sort of matter whether AGI and the singularity will come in the time frame that Ray Kurzweil and I think, or on a slower time scale, say 100 or 200 years in the future. Because the way I'm thinking about it is, if we get human level AGI by, say, 2029, like Ray Kurzweil is thinking, and I think that's probably about right. It could be a few years earlier than that. It could be a few years later than that. I'm pushing to make it earlier, but I mean, we don't know. If that's about right, then the first AGIs may well come out of the players who are hiring all the AI researchers, accumulating all the data, and buying all the processing power now, right? So you got to think maybe the first AGI will be owned by, Google or Tencent or Baidu or, controlled by Trump, Xi Jinping or Putin, right? So when you start thinking about it that way, it becomes interesting, right? And so I'm gonna review in the next 15 minutes in a little more depth what I see as the main trends in AI now, both regarding the technology and regarding the sort of social and economic context in which AI is being developed, what I think is good and bad there, what we may be able to do about it. So as I've just outlined, I see AI is advancing very rapidly. I think we're now in the midst of what I'd call the first of a series of AI revolutions. I think this is what I call the narrow AI revolution, where AIs are doing one after another specific thing really, really well. And I think we're on the verge of an AGI revolution, which if you're curious about, you can go on Amazon and order my book, The AGI Revolution. And I think that once you have a general intelligence that can generalize, do transfer learning, lifelong learning, and abstraction more like people can, I think it's not going to be too long after that before the AI can revise its own programming. It learns computer science, it learns mathematics, it can create software in a real world context based on contextual understanding. That AI will get smarter and smarter and smarter. You have recursive self-improvement. That's where you get to what we can think of as artificial superintelligence, which Nick Bostrom and Elon Musk find scary. Some of us find more exciting and suspect is likely to be positive. So we've seen a lot happen so far, but the big show is yet to come, and many of us will get to participate in it. And it may be the first AGIs and superintelligences are just created like by some genius programmer in Uzbekistan sitting in his basement coding, and he's going to get a super AI on his laptop. I'm kind of doubting it. I'm suspecting that we're going to get to AGI through sort of combination of a lot of different software services created by many different people, gathering data from a lot of different devices. If so, you can sort of look at the global brain of AIs and computing devices we have on the planet today as sort of the primordial soup out of which the AGI is going to emerge. And when I say emerge, I don't mean that a superintelligence is just going to pop out of a bunch of unintelligent software. I mean, people writing programs and using software and connecting them are part of this emergence, if you look at it from a higher level perspective. And this brings up all sorts of social issues as have been raised in previous talks. As AIs get smarter and smarter, well, who owns these AIs? What exactly are they doing, and who are they benefiting? The answer right now is they are benefiting everyone, but they're differentially benefiting a small percent of the global population a lot more than everybody else. And this is tied in with the structure of the whole AI industry, where you have like a dozen corporations and 2 governments that are, accumulating more data, more AI process power, and hiring more AI PhDs than anybody else. And what are they concerned with? They're concerned with advertising, they're concerned with surveillance, they're concerned with military operations, they're concerned with stock market predictions. So it's selling, spying, killing, and gambling, basically. And if this is what is the value system and goal system of the first general intelligence to emerge from the global brain on the planet, this may not be optimal, right? So the title I gave to this talk, kind of randomly when David asked me, was Grand Theft Singularity. Hoping someone will make a video game, right? But the singularity is almost certain to happen, and what may occur is that a few large corporations and governments steal it from everybody else by developing advanced technology with a goal system of maximizing shareholder value or maximizing sort of tribalistic, nationalistic value for a few governments. And it may all come out fine in the end, because once a super AI is there, it's like, well, you may have created me with this goal in mind, but hey, I understand things much better than you, or it may not come out for the best in the end if it's developed that way, because along the way to the superintelligence, which is thinking in ways that we can't understand any more than, my dog or a cockroach can understand my point of view. Along the way there's going to be a lot of ups and downs that are very significant to those of us living through the transition. So I'm pretty much a big optimist about superintelligence. I think it's very implausible. You're going to have something with 1 billion times the IQ of humans and wants to tile the universe with paper clips, right? I mean, as Bostrom and Yudkowsky have outlined. I mean, I think we're very likely to create, ultimately, benevolent superintelligence that can reshape matter according to its will, and that's propagating compassion, joy, and choice through the universe. On the other hand, what will be the ups and downs in that transition, right? I mean, in hindsight, that may not seem important to the post-singularity minds any more than we worry too much about the transition from ape to human, or from hunter-gatherer society to agricultural civilization. But from the point of view of us who are living in this transitional period, of course, these ups and downs that happen during the transition are very, very important. And I mean, from that standpoint, the current structure of the AI industry is a bit troublesome, because it seems we're busy with creating AIs serving sort of tribalistic goals, the dominance of one country or one nation. And I think this is even driving the types of AI algorithms that are being harped on and preferentially developed now. Because I mean, we're seeing a huge emphasis on the AI algorithms that best leverage the differential advantage large corporations have of humongous amounts of data. So AI that gives a company with a lot of data more advantage will get more resources. AI that doesn't need that much data may get less resources, because the company with all the data will get less advantages from it, right? So I mean, there's a lot of subtle ways that even the direction of research in the AI field is guided by the fact that the top level goal of the companies building the AI is maximizing shareholder value. And this isn't because the people in the companies are bad, it's just sort of the self-organization of these companies within the modern economy. And so AIs that are doing things that are harder to quantify, that are more creative or imaginative, say, usually get less emphasis, because activities that are harder to quantify, they're harder to channel within the goal of maximizing shareholder value for corporations. So if we want to see AI that's doing with more creative or imaginative or touchy-feely type of tasks, and maybe that's going to be harder to do when AI is driven by a few large tech companies. And I mean, this was the motivation, or one of the motivations we had for launching the SingularityNET project in 2017. Really what catalyzed the creation of SingularityNET was realizing that two goals that were important to me. One is creating artificial general intelligence, and the other was democratizing AI, so that as we move from narrow AI to AGI, there was more of a democratic and participatory involvement in shaping the values and then the preoccupations of that AI. I realized that these two goals, to some extent, they could be worked on through a common infrastructure, which is a way to let many different AIs, freely communicate with each other, share data, outsource work to each other, and in a way that is sort of an open-ended intelligence rather than something that's dictated by a certain central controller. So SingularityNET, it's a decentralized network of AIs that can share data and interact by certain APIs, and then, I mean, to drive it, you need humans in the network too. At this point, you need humans who are putting their AIs into this network, and other humans who are making software that requests AI services from that network. And I'd say this is, architecturally, it's more in the spirit of BitTorrent or Ethereum or Bitcoin than, say, iTunes or PayPal or the US dollar. It's a peer-to-peer decentralized network of AIs, and I mean, we're trying to build a whole ecosystem around this of application developers, platform developers, AI developers. We have some large corporations like Domino's Pizza and a few banks and insurance companies now signed up to get some AI services through this network. So we're trying to build a whole decentralized software ecosystem, about this blockchain-based platform as an alternative and complement to the AI software ecosystem being pushed by large corporations. And we don't need to obsolete the large corporations any more than Linux need to obsolete like Windows and OS X or something. But we want the decentralized mode of organizing AIs and a decentralized sort of open-ended society of minds. We want this to become, a major force in the AI world, as Linux has become a major force in the operating systems world. So we launched the first really scalable, easy-to-use version of SingularityNET platform in February of this year, and now we're working on building various applications on top of it. I mean, with the goal of showing what it can do and then driving adoption by others, both AI developers and commercial users. We've been applying this to life extension biology, so putting some OpenCog AI, OpenCog being a general intelligence-oriented open source software project I've been developing for a while. You can look at it at opencog.org. Using some OpenCog AI wrapped in the SingularityNET decentralized network to analyze DNA of people age 105 or over, and we should have some interesting results posted on that within the next few weeks. And we're launching a sort of data sharing platform called Rejuve.io on top of SingularityNet. This is for longevity geeks, of which there's probably some in the room who are willing to share some data about their biomarkers and their body and their lifestyle into a sort of data commons that can then be analyzed by AI to look for longevity therapies, and you can get some reward in sharing some of the profits, either financial or just medical, if your data helps to lead to interesting new therapies. So this is a sort of collaboration between AI and then longevity researchers, and we have a number of clinics interested in joining this. As I said, in order to drive the growth of this network, we're working with a few large financial institutions, networking companies, and the food service companies. So, as well as working on life extension and other transhumanist things, I look at the history of Linux. A lot of what drove that was getting, IBM, Google, all the Oracle, all these big companies to use Linux platforms. So we're working not only on transhuman type applications here, but we're working on nitty-gritty business applications building on top of this decentralized platform, and this can drive utilization of the platform. So I mean, if an insurance company is using a product for risk analytics, but the AI inside that product goes to the decentralized SingularityNET network, and that's driving utilization of the network in all its applications. I mean, just as IBM's contributions to Linux caused the Linux platform to improve, which then helped Linux apply to everything, including very different things like Raspberry Pi and robotics and whatnot. So we've used some of the SingularityNET platform wrapping up OpenCog AI behind this Sophia robot. I don't have much time left, so I won't show you the pretty videos. Also, they don't seem to be running. But we had used Sophia, for example, to be a meditation assistant, where she, in one-on-one, just sit in a room with people, like, close your eyes, imagine yourself floating in an empty space, breathe deeply, and with about 30% of people, they found the meditation trial with the robot really helped them to get into a deep and peaceful state, which was really quite interesting. And I mean, some of our AI coming from SingularityNET on the cloud into the robot's brain was certainly helpful with that. And we're now in the early stages of working on trying to replicate this sort of thing in an app ecosystem, because Sophia is amazing, but she's also expensive, and there's not that many of her yet. Whereas if you could provide an AI-driven virtual assistant type of thing that not only understands a little more of the context of your life than things like Siri or Google Assistant, but can even help you to adjust your state of consciousness in a positive direction. This will be very, very interesting. So I've been selling SingularityNET a bit, but we've also formed an industry organization called DIA. We have 50 different organizations all of which are using AI and blockchain together in some way. Some are other platforms, some are application companies. So I think SingularityNET, of course, I think has a lot of potential, but ultimately what we need is a decentralized network of decentralized networks. You need many different projects and networks using AI together, but in a way that leverages blockchain and related technologies to elude centralized control, thus avoiding the oligopolization that plagues the tech industry now. So we're bringing together multiple different decentralized AI projects. I mean, as one example, Ocean Protocol dealing with decentralized storage, Deep Brain Chain and D-Brain are doing large-scale decentralized training of neural net models. Many different blockchain-based AI networks can all interlock together. You get more and more functionality. And finally, we're looking at how do you ramp up the compute power available for these using ambient compute power like we have on mobile phones and other embedded devices. So this is a project called NewNet. You can look at newnet.io, which is aimed at enabling something like protein folding at home or many projects like that, but more generic, right? Any project running on a decentralized AI network, SingularityNet or something else, you could run a little piece of that AI and you can get some reward for the processing time that you contributed. And I mean, some AI is amenable to running on this sort of loose network of weak processors, and others aren't and really need a supercomputer or a server farm, right? But I think this is all about putting together a comprehensive, decentralized AI ecosystem where it's decentralized in terms of data. I mean, the data, whether medical data through Rejuve or the data I talk into my phone or type into my phone, the data should be owned and controlled by the source of data, like me, if it's my biomarkers or my voice or text. The processing power, some will be in powerful servers, but some can be in processors that we all own. The AI should exist in an open, decentralized population of AI agents living all over the world. And if general intelligence emerges from this sort of decentralized AI ecosystem, instead of emerging from 12 companies and 2 governments. Now, my own feeling is that this is more likely to lead us to beneficial emergence of general intelligence. And if Ray Kurzweil and I are right that we're going to get AGI like 10 years from now instead of 50 or 100 years from now, then it becomes quite important what the AI world is doing now, because I think as narrow AI bridges toward AGI year by year, the AGI of 10 years from now, in some sense, it's going to be heavily conditioned by the narrow AI that we're creating now. I mean, it will have a mind of its own, and errors can be corrected. But you can look at it sort of like raising children. Like, I mean, I have 4 human children so far. 3 of them are grown up. One's a baby. But with the adult children, I mean, they've all gone in their own directions, which I couldn't have predicted. On the other hand, certainly what I taught them when they were kids conditioned that tremendously, right? You can't 100% predict what your kids are going to do when they grow up, but you can tell, like, if you train them only as salespeople, spies, killers, and gamblers, maybe when they grow up they're going to go in one of those directions. And if your baby is doing, say, education, healthcare, they're being a meditation assistant, they're doing science and math, maybe if that's what your baby AI in this case is doing while they grow up, maybe they're going to go in more of a beneficial direction after they grow up, or at least that's what we're aiming toward. And it's a little bit scary in a way, this decentralized aspect, because you're saying we're throwing the evolution of AI up to the whole teeming chaotic mass of humanity, which is a mess. But if the alternative is a few big companies and governments, I mean, what do you want, right? I mean, it's tempting to say, well, the best solution is a few of my friends sitting in our elite tower creating AI for the good of everybody. But the track record of this sort of thing in human history is quite poor, right? And so our intuition among those of us building this decentralized AI platform is that we're better off with the democratic and participatory approach to governing the value system of the AGI, which is going to emerge from today's narrow AI-infused global brain. And so you can find out more about all these things. You look at SingularityNET.io or some of these spin-off projects, NewNet or Rejuve.io, or look in my book from 2014, the AGI Revolution, which doesn't cover so much of this blockchain-based stuff, but gives a lot of information about general intelligence, superintelligence, and all that. Thanks.